again. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Jodo Cast, your home for Star Wars gaming. My name's Joe, and today we've got, per usual, we've got Leo.
Hey.
And Kurt.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about Adepticon today. So,
I think mostly you're going to be talking about Adepticon.
I mean,
me and Kurt are going to be listening about Adepticon.
You will have questions and witticisms for sure. You read the script. You've got some good lines coming up. So we could do a quick what you've been playing.
Sure.
Before we get into the meat of it. So, Kurt, what you been playing?
Star Wars Unlimited. Not as much as a lot of people, but been trying to get some regular matches in. Also, I played a little bit of the Dark Forces remaster, just like the first few levels, which is kind of fun to go back to. I like it. You know, it's neat that it's like the way they updated the graphics. It still looks like DOS graphics, but it's like just enough better that it doesn't look completely terrible. I don't know how to describe, but it's like just enough better that it looks like DOS, but doesn't look as shitty as it could. So I don't know.
Plus, you can also toggle on the old school graphics if you want.
Yeah,
true. That helps because you're like, oh, this looks like crap, and then you turn it to the old ones, and you're like, actually, this looks really good.
The one interesting thing I'll point out before you can continue is it's fun walking next to the Moldy Crow on the level because it's like pretty tiny in this game. It's like no bigger than an X-Wing, and it's like it does not look like you could fit in the cockpit. Like it obviously should be larger than it is, but they changed that in later games. But anyways, it's kind of fun to go back to.
Well, that's because the Moldy Crow was, going through puberty and growing up.
It looks like you would not be able to sit upright in the cockpit. Like you would have to like lay down. But maybe
it's like a interstellar bobsled.
I mean, there's no forward windows, so it's like you
or I guess it would be more like a
luge, right?
A luge, right? Because you actually sit up like, in a bobsled. I think
you might as well lay
mode
down,
in the Chris Nolan Batmobile that like kind of takes you and like lays you on your stomach.
Yeah, that's all for me.
Leo, what you been playing?
I've been playing Star Wars Unlimited also a lot. Okay.
I was like, I wish I had a sound effect for like the "What You Been Playing" bumper or something.
That's all you got.
Yeah, that's the best I got for now.
All right. Yeah, and I was going to pick up the Battlefront collection, but luckily I didn't bother buying that before all the reviews about what a mess that's been have hit. Maybe I'll pick it up once it's on sale and the servers have kind of stabilized a little bit. Of course, by then there'll probably be nobody playing, so you still won't be able to play with anybody online.
Yeah, I wonder because on Steam, I'm sure the I think it's called Battlefront Classic or whatever, because those games have been pretty healthy on Steam this whole time. So I wonder if now the player base on PC is now just split between the classic collection and then like the classic versions of those games that were already on Steam and still being played pretty easily.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pick up the Dark Forces remastered here soon as well to play through, but I've just been busy with other things, and I've played the game several times already. So
yeah, I need to pick that up. I've never played through that game other than like the first level or two, and then I go, I don't know if this is worth my time right now.
I did watch a YouTube video of a guy that I often watch his videos of him playing games, and he tried out, and he enjoys Star Wars, and so he's done like several like Battlefront ones and stuff.
The Jodo Cast?
Yeah, that guy. And so then he's playing, but he's quite a bit younger than I am, or even you are, Joe. Um, and so just the old school FPS-ness of it just completely defeated him. Like, he couldn't figure out where to go in the levels, and he was lost all the time, and was all like, how did people ever play this game?
It doesn't feel
that
enough like a
reminds me
real
of
level, like a real place. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I played through the original Doom, but I think Doom must have had a more functional map than Dark Forces, because I remember having that same issue when I tried playing Dark Forces, where it's like, I've gone in circles 50 times, and oh, it's because I didn't click that one pixel on the wall that was slightly different to open the thing that you couldn't even it was a door that whole time. But and I played a lot of different things recently, which is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Adepticon 2024. I was there. Evan was there. Evan, you might notice, not here, so I will speak on his behalf. So
Poor Evan got stuck with work.
Evan played a lot of Age of Sigmar there, so it's out of our jurisdiction.
Unless he had a Star Wars themed Sigmar army, like he painted them all like stormtroopers or something. I feel like he wouldn't want to mix games.
I don't know.
That,
I've seen 40K armies where they paint up Space Marines as stormtroopers and stuff before. I can't think of ever seeing a Age of Sigmar conversion like that though.
And our friend John was also there. He was doing a lot of the Shatterpoint with us. So I think we might as well just walk through the event chronologically. Yeah. And I'll share my thoughts. You guys can have questions.
Take us on a journey.
To Schaumburg, Illinois. Describe the sights, the smells.
Well, there was an Egg Harbor, and I just remembered I probably still have a few little butter mints from Egg Harbor in my coat pocket still. I should go eat those.
What's an Egg Harbor?
It's like a breakfast restaurant. Stupidly, it has nothing nautical about it. I don't know where the word harbor comes from. It's just like a chicken themed.
I wonder if that's the place I went to breakfast in Chicago with Evan the one time. Probably.
It was pretty good. Evan and I actually sat at the exact same table we sat at last year at last Adepticon. And the waitress asked us if we were brothers, and we were like, not all white men with beards and glasses are brothers. Yeah, so I got in on Wednesday.
I'd like to think all of us here at the Jodo Cast are brothers.
Well, you don't have glasses, so you're a cousin.
Oh.
Yeah, we got in on Wednesday, and basically on Wednesday, what we did was we got our badge. So we were hanging out at the place, and we played a lot of Unlimited because we each brought some decks, and I don't think John lost a single game of Unlimited the entire week.
Wow. Was that some specific killer decks, or?
I think John is like a Chris level gamer. He's just got the brain of I know the way everything should happen. Had some close games, but never quite beat him there.
Well, he played.
Evan and I.
He
were
played
pretty
Destiny. John played Destiny fairly seriously though too. Back when that was out, didn't he?
I don't know if seriously is the right word, but he played it a lot.
Well,
it was his baby until it died. Yeah, we played a lot of Unlimited. I was trying my Inquisitor deck. I made a Hera deck and a Han Solo deck, and I think the Han Solo deck's a lot of fun. But yeah, there was a number of people, because we were just playing in the hotel lobby. People like, you play Magic? We're like, no, we're playing Unlimited. And then they were like, they had an epiphany, were converted, went and sold all their Magic stuff, and no. So that was really all we did on Wednesday. Thursday was the first day of the convention. We got there early, and what John and I did for most of the day was we did the Shatterpoint League, which was the one with the Force League. So, just like last year, the main convention space was split into thirds. One third being Warhammer and its child properties. One third is where all the vendors were, and the other third was Atomic Mass Games and all of their event tables. So there was about a quarter of it was Legion, a quarter of it was X-Wing, a quarter of it was actually, so half of one side was X-Wing and Legion, and then the other side was split into quarters, where one of it was like the streaming area where they had streaming tables for all of the games except Armada. There was the MCP area, the Shatterpoint area, and then there was like the tournament HQ / prize wall. So Shatterpoint and MCP were the smallest footprint there, and Legion and X-Wing were the biggest. And Armada, there were signs that said, "Hey, go to this other building in this other hotel across wherever," which sucks for Armada. It's obviously with the addition of Shatterpoint, there was just no room to have all 5 games in the same space. And, if one of them was going to get, the go to the other hotel treatment, it was going to be Armada, but it still, sucks. I did briefly bump into a guy who was wearing an Armada shirt and asked him about it. And he said it was kind of annoying, but also like sort of nice in a way because it was so much quieter and like chill.
I suppose so.
There.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I was gonna ask, did you happen to see did any other games like from over in like the Warhammer area or anything like that, or some smaller stuff that isn't represented by either Games Workshop or Atomic Mass get pushed over there as well?
There was like a different hall that was smaller than the main one that was basically where all of the other games were, like I don't know all their names, but a lot of different games that maybe only needed like 1 or 2 rows of tables that were in this other spot, and that was where a lot of really, really cool stuff was happening for games I'd never heard of, where people had this like 8-foot fortress wall going down a table that they were playing on, and all this really crazy terrain. I think, according to Evan, some of the historical war games were in a different building, like Bolt Action and people with their like Napoleonic armies and things like that. I think those were like at a different site, but I don't know if it was at the same place as Armada. Maybe Armada was just all alone with no other people there.
It's a little too bad. It would be fun to have all the Star Wars stuff in one room, because that's kind of like exciting when you have all the different ships and stuff.
Kick out Marvel.
Yeah, agreed.
Because I really liked that last year, because instead of Shatterpoint it was Armada, and so it was fun seeing all of that, all of the Armada ships on the table, because it's also a game I just see less of, and it's nice to see so many people still playing it.
Yeah.
So John and I did the one with the Force League, which was actually very cool. It was basically a just getting games with whoever, whenever, wherever, with some special rules. So you got a small stack of, I think it was 5 cards. Each card had 2 abilities on it that were reactive abilities. And so during a game, you have these cards. One of them is revealed, and any of your units on your team can treat those abilities as if they were on their card. And after you use one, you discard it and reveal the next one. And everyone had a light side and a dark side ability. And when you used a light side ability, you made a little you put a token on this little tracker that says, "Hey, I used a light side ability," or "Hey, I used a dark side ability." And at the end of the game, use that to say, okay, well, I used majority dark side, so when we check in, I'm going to put this sticker on my big sheet that said I used dark side, and if you use mostly dark side, then you start unlocking these really more powerful abilities that only your primaries can use. And if you get all the way through the light side or all the way through the dark side, then you unlock like this super ability that they like give you a card and it's randomized, so you could get like one of 3 abilities for each that is like a superpower ability. So that was actually pretty fun to do this sort of alternate game mode where things were a little bit more crazy because you had access to all of these extra powers. Like one of them, I tended to favor the dark side powers because they seemed a lot more useful because they were obviously more aggressive, and the light side ones tended to be ways to heal your cards. Um, for example, it'd be like, okay, you take an expose, but now you can re-roll any number of dice on this next attack, or taking it. I think it was take an expose to add 2 dice, but then your character takes a damage for every miss you have in your roll. So a lot of like risk reward kind of things, whereas the light side ones tended to be like roll 1 fewer dice to like heal something, or there were some good ones like when you reveal the Shatterpoint card, when you choose the unit to activate, just pull their card out of the deck and shuffle the Shatterpoint back in.
Wow, that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all pretty neat, and I have all of them, and I have like the sheet. The only content I don't have is those final like super bonus abilities because there were 3 light and 3 dark, and I only have 1 dark, so I don't. John maxed out light side, so I could potentially put together proxy cards and print those off and run it locally. Um, I'm sure the someone else has already uploaded those pictures somewhere, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was cool. And it was the league was basically log 4 games a day. Every game you log, you get 6 prize well tickets. So we logged 4 games on Thursday. All of the Shatterpoint tables there were real cool. They had the new garage terrain piece that's not for sale yet, which I think a lot of people were like, actually, I'm glad they had this here because now I don't think I want to buy it. It's really
it's not different enough, basically.
It's not. Yeah, and it's also really big. Takes up a lot of weird space. I'll probably still get it. I think it's a cool looking piece, but it may not be that as functional as some of the other stuff. Um,
And
but some of
so
the paint jobs were just real nice.
nice.
Did they?
So
Did they?
when you were playing, did you have to do different lists or the same list all the time, or it just kind of didn't matter?
For the Force League, nothing really mattered. It's not you show up at the where the judges for Shatterpoint were, because there were other side events going on that we didn't play in, like the frenemies, I believe was there were specific characters you had to choose from, like basically like you would pick Ventress and Kenobi, or people who are like on opposite sides that have to be together.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Characters you
but
probably wouldn't combine normally, but
right, yeah, just certain list building restrictions. There's another one called Best Buds, which had sort of the opposite, but like, well, that's most list building anyways, where you're already encouraged to have like these synergies.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no really requirements. You just got those special cards, and then you got to play, and then show up, and you know they, yeah, they're not like babysitting you, and there's no like list building
No real
restrictions.
tournament structure or anything.
Right. Yeah. All of my One with the Force League games, I just played against John. There were people like,
yeah.
hey, you want to get a league game in? And I'm like, well, if I play you, then John's not going to have anyone to play. So I was like, well, I'm already playing with my buddy. So if there was like 2 people looking for a game, then maybe we would have. But there was always just like one person.
Yeah, that's too bad.
And I did get my chance to play other people at the tournament on Saturday, which we'll get to.
Yeah. So with the terrain, was there any like thing extra they did to any of the terrain pieces, or was it all just kind of like the standard stuff you buy out of the box and then just paint it up nice?
I was a little disappointed that it was 100% stock standard stuff. There was a few tables that had additional items like um, these really nice barricades and like sort of like street light looking pylons that sort of matched the, because they all had really cool mats too. There were some new mats that I hadn't seen before, um, but there wasn't any like customized stuff or like 3D printed stuff. Um, so it was all, they're all like different because of the, there's a lot of variations you can make, but it was all like standard stuff with just really nice paint jobs. I did see a couple people brought some like 3D printed stuff. I saw them playing on it. I'm like, I want to play on that because there's like a fun like sail barge thing.
Hmm.
But so after just playing a bunch of Shatterpoint, and John and I both were aiming to get the range rulers from the prize wall because there were acrylic range rulers for Shatterpoint, each of which has like a Mandalorian weapon depicted on it. Range 5 is Boba Fett's EE3 blaster. Range 4 is like Mando's wrist shooting off some whistling birds. 3 was just like a flamethrower, and 2 was like a vibro knife. Um, and those were really nice, and we did end up getting enough tickets to get those.
How many tickets did those cost?
Those were 75.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
and
whatever the like 12 something matches of Shatterpoint basically.
yeah, there was the league games. The Legion Worlds paid out more than the side events for Shatterpoint, and then we also did a Shatterpoint tournament.
Was Evan doing Sigmar already while you're doing that stuff?
Hey, Evan, his Sigmar tournament was on Saturday, and the other days he was just kind of like, I don't know, doing Evan stuff. He'd come hang out and like watch us play and go look at all, because there's like so much stuff to just look at Adepticon where it's like, oh my gosh, I missed a bunch of stuff. I didn't get to even look at like the armies on parade that I wanted to see. I was so busy this year. Last year, I said I would only go back to Adepticon if I had another Worlds invite, because most of the stuff at Adepticon just isn't my thing because it's mostly Warhammer. This year, I'm like of the opposite opinion where I'm like, I kind of want to go back, but not spend all my time playing in these tournaments because it was exhausting. It was a lot, and it prevented me from doing more content creator type things like making more videos or, just interviewing
Looking
random
around
players and things
more.
like that.
Yeah.
So I think if I manage to go again, I'll be doing it differently because this year Thursday was 4 games of Shatterpoint. Friday was 4 games of Legion. Saturday was 5 games of Shatterpoint on Saturday. It was a lot. So after we were done with our one with the Force League games on Thursday, I met with Simone from Atomic Mass Games, and I presented her with the Game of the Year award because Jodo Cast Game of the Year 2023 was Shatterpoint, so I made up a little trophy, and we did a little thing. We filmed it. There'll be a video of that up.
Was she
sometime.
appropriately odd with your
She
trophy?
was. She really liked it. It was a gold Ahsoka mini, Padawan Ahsoka, on a plinth with a plaque that was magnetized. She actually really liked it and was very flattered and excited about it. And apparently, it was their Shatterpoint's first award.
Whoa!
Oh, that's our claim to
put that on
fame.
the box now.
Yeah, they beat out. She was happy to hear that they beat out Jedi Survivor. So that was fun. And then after that, it was Star Wars trivia, which sucked. I love trivia, and I love Star Wars trivia. And last year we got, I think, second place because we blew it on the bonus question. Because it's Jeopardy style where you wager up to 15 of your points, and we wagered it all and lost enough to drop in a second on a question that John would have known had he been there. And this year we had John. So John, if you're listening, don't forget this was all your fault because you were the one thing that was different this year. But the reason trivia last year, it was just kind of felt bad, like, oh man, we blew it at the end. This year it felt bad because it was bad as far as like just trivia. Okay, if you're into pub trivia or trivia, there's like, it's kind of hard to make a good quiz. The
like
questions can't be
mix.
too hard, they can't be too easy, and it started off on a very bad note. I don't blame the guy running it. It was clear that he was kind of like forced into doing it last minute and was like frazzled. But the first question was, let's see if you guys get this right. Who was the original owner of Anakin Skywalker?
So it'd be someone before
Watto?
You're already ahead of the trivia writers and 2/3 of the participants, because we wrote down Gardula the Hutt. I think it's Gardula the Hutt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's spoken out loud in the movie when Anakin is explaining to them, like, oh, Gardula the Hutt lost us to Watto in a pod race.
Oh, that's right.
Like
that's
that.
right. I remember that
It's
now.
out loud in the movie. So it's like, okay, this is a good question because people are going to write Watto. But the answer is Gardula. And it's in the movie. So it's not like, I was like, well, that's a nice trivia question. Then when he reads the answer, he says it's Watto. And we're like, what the fuck? Fact check. And then so a number of us were like, that's factually wrong. Please look it up. And so they had like a couple people like verifying it. And they're like, oh, okay. And so they gave, but then we got the point, but people who wrote Watto also got the point, even though that's wrong. And so that was like, oh, so it's going to be like this.
Yeah, that's not a good start.
And then another one that, so then like future, we were like citing our work because one of them was like, I'm gonna name you 4 people, say where they died, and one of them was Darth Maul, and we're like, oh god, it's obvious it's Tatooine, but is this gonna be another Watto thing where they are looking for Naboo?
Yeah.
Luckily, that one was Tatooine, but we were like writing Tatooine in Rebels, not Naboo from Phantom Menace, like citing our word. That one there was a real tough one on there though. That one was Darth Revan was on that list. I think it was Maul, Yoda. I forget the third one, and then Revan. I'm like, lucky Evan was there because Darth Revan apparently dies on Yavin 4 in the Shadows of Revan expansion for the Old Republic. So I'm like, I don't know that. The worst question of the night was, what is the best line in Star Wars?
You can't have a subjective thing as a trivia question. That's not
like, that's the worst trivia question I've ever heard. That's an opinion. So we're like, what the fuck is this? It's like, so we're like, I guess we'd better go with I am your father, because like that seems like I was like, well, can I just put like some Jar Jar line that's stupid? But I'm like, well, because it's trivia, I guess there's like a right answer, and that seems like the most right answer of somebody maybe writing a quiz. So that's what we wrote.
I really don't know where this question's gonna go. What was the answer?
Well, so the way the game works is you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Every time you submit a question, you pick one of those numbers to put on there, and that's how many points you'll get. And you can only use each number once. Okay, so we already used 10. The more confident you are, the higher number you put. So we put like 2 on
weird,
the.
but
That's
We
a
put.
weird. I've never heard of trivia like that. That's weird. But
It's sort of
anyways,
like Jeopardy, basically, because you have like your high point question and then the slightly lower 100-point question for each category.
okay, yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. That's still
Um,
strange, but anyways,
so when you're not confident, we'll throw the 2 out for this. So we put a low number for that one because we're like, we don't know what's going on here. This makes no sense for trivia. And so then he read some people's answers, one of which was not a line from Star Wars, where he said, "Luke, I am your father." Not a line. No one says that in Star Wars. But everybody got points for whatever they wrote, and I was like, and people made noises, and he was like, "You guys should be happy. You got points." I'm like, no, that's not how trivia works. There's no like free space in trivia. And we use like low number of points for that one because we didn't have any idea what the fuck was going on.
Oh, this is the best trivia I've ever played. They gave us points even though we got all the questions wrong. I love this. It's so fun.
Yeah. There was some good questions like where was the New Republic Starhawk manufactured? Nadiri Dockyards. I got that one right. I think I put Nadari Shipyards, but they gave us points for that. But at that point the vibe was out there, and that's where I met the Armada guy. He had also put Gardula the Hutt. He was some guy from England wearing an Armada shirt, and he's like, "I'm from England. I love a good quiz. What's going on?" I was like, I don't know, man. And then, so we were in first place the entire time. I think we only missed one question. Maybe we didn't miss any. And then, another one of like the list things was name the 4 commanders of Reg Squadron. And we had the hell of a time coming up with anybody besides Garvin Trays and Wedge Antilles.
Mm-hmm.
And when he read them, I don't even remember who the other 4 were. I think maybe one was Luke, and then someone was like Arho something. And we like the way trivia is working, you had time to dick around on your phones between things when it wasn't like possible you could be cheating. So we were like trying to look up the previous answer that he just gave us to like who is that? We couldn't even like find it if you like control F'd on the Red Squadron page. Like, what did they make up a character? What is that from? And then the final question. So we were in first place, but you could wager a maximum of 15 of your points. We did not have a 15-point lead. We had like a 5-point lead. So we were like, okay, we made John do the math, and we had to wager 11 points to get first place if we get it right. And then basically, if we got it wrong or wagered 0, no matter what, we were going to get third place, which is what we ended up getting because the final question was a bad trivia question. Not because it was something like
there wasn't the question reader was all like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how sexy do you think I am?
It wasn't like the Gardula Watto situation. It wasn't the best line thing. It was an actual question, but it was so hard as to be a bad question because, it was Compnor, I don't even know what that stands for. Let me Google it real quick. The Commission for the Preservation of the New Order. And before you wager points, you get to know the category. The category was organizations. So we're like, yeah, all right, whatever. Well, we gotta wager something, because even if we wager nothing, we might still not take first. And the question was, what are the 5 subgroups that make up Compnor? And we were like, what? Okay.
Yeah,
ISB. We put ISB, Army, Navy, science, and propaganda/loyalty. That's what we wrote.
I was going to say Army and Navy aren't.
And then when
there's
I handed it
probably
in,
ISB and IIB, I assume.
Well,
maybe
I turned it in, and the guy looked, and
know.
he was like, "Oh, that's a creative thing." I'm like, "Don't sass me, man. This is the dumbest question." Like, a hard trivia question, a Star Wars trivia question that I don't know is usually a very good trivia question. But I don't think I'm out of line in saying this is a bad trivia question, because the answers are the Imperial Security Bureau, okay, ISB. I think most people got that one. Imperial Office of Customs, Comp Force, Coalition for Progress, and Coalition for Improvements. And if you didn't get all 5 of those right, you got 0 points.
I would have gotten ISB and Comp Force. Those are the only 2 I could remember. And like I said, I read like the old like West End Games Imperial source book multiple times. Like it just was genuinely a neat book to read. So I read through it several times when I was younger. But when you asked, I could only pull out those 2 when you told me what the question was.
And those aren't interesting. They don't really have that much of an impact on any of the stories, other than like ISB. Obviously, most of them are not worth memorizing. You might as well memorize like a random NPC on some level in KOTOR that no one would remember, right? Like that's as valuable.
So the 2 people apparently got it right. We were very skeptical, but if they got it right, good for them. That's amazing and wild. And given the crowd, it is possible that there was somebody who sat there as a kid and read that book 10 times more than you did, Leo.
Or it's even like if you just actually ran like a campaign that somehow involved more of that branch of the Empire or whatever, if you were playing the old role-playing game.
Like the committee for improvements, that would be
or like customs, and I don't know, man. I mean, maybe they were role-playing some guys who were actually like in the ISB or something. I don't know. I could see if it actually comes up in your games, it's being like the sort of knowledge you would retain maybe somewhere down the future.
Somebody was making their players take an Imperial citizenship test, and that was a question on the test. But yeah, so it's not out of the question that somebody got it right, but I'm pretty skeptical that somebody had that in their back pocket. I did reach out on Twitter to Alex from Star Wars Explained, who famously dominates the Star Wars trivia at DragonCon every year. And they post the quiz every year on DragonCon, and I usually get maybe like a little over 2/3 of them right, and they are very, very hard. And I was like, "Is this something you know?" And he said, "Not even close." No idea. Just like, so it's just like, ugh.
The last time I did Star Wars trivia, I hated it. It was like a local thing though, but I hated it because all the questions were like, I don't know. They were, I guess, more like normie Star Wars trivia questions. You know what I mean? Like they were so easy. So I got every question right the whole time up until the very final question. The question was, who originally played Emperor Palpatine?
Oh. The lady with the monkey eyes?
Yeah, the lady who had all the prosthetics and stuff. That's what I'm thinking. And I'm all like, shit, I cannot remember her name. I'm talking to my wife, and I'm all like, she's all like, isn't it that the guy who was in the prequels and stuff? And I'm like, no, he wasn't. There was in the original cut of Empire Strikes Back,
is a
this
real
lady.
Gardula Watto situation. Here.
But I can't remember her name. So we're just going to write down Ian McDermott, I guess, because I can't remember the lady's name. And then lo and behold, when they read the question, they're like, it was Ian McDermott. And I was all like, well, it wasn't, but I also just won trivia because of it, so I'm not going to say anything.
You probably still would have won if you took away that point from everyone.
Yeah, well, actually, it was the final one, so it was the one where you could like wager extra points and stuff. So
yeah, the one other time I'd done it, it was back in Fargo at some place, and I had 100% of the questions right, and so did another team. So it came down to a tiebreaker, which I lost because the tiebreaker is always just like, Price is Right. The answer is a number, highest without, closest without going over, kind of thing. And it was like, how much did The Force Awakens make at the box office? I'm like, I don't know.
5.
5. Anyway, so that was trivia. We were all kind of deflated after that. It was just sort of a big feels bad kind of thing. Did have some nice chats with shout out to Diablo, guy at a table over who knew of the Jodo Cast, listened to the podcast in the past.
It was literally the Lord of Terror was sitting at the table next to them.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty chill, pretty nice guy. Yeah, and then we talked again later. I caught him doing some gonk racing. Oh, I got to go back in time real quick because John and I did do gonk racing on Thursday, which
nice.
I adored.
What were the rules kind of like?
Right, so we were prohibited from taking photographs of any of the components other than like the terrain and the gonk miniatures themselves. I later in a chat with Will Schick asked him, is this because I was like, he was one of the guys who threw the rules together, and I was like telling him how much I loved it, and I'm like, is that just because of licensing? And he's like, yes, because it obviously wasn't like, they did. I don't think they got Lucasfilm to like sign off and approve these things. So I do remember all the rules. I don't remember all of the text of the gadgets that your gonks can get, but otherwise remember the rules. So you pick a gonk droid. You can pick a light gonk, a heavy gonk, or a custom gonk. Light gonk, I think, was the best because it can hit speed 5.
You should be able to pick bathroom attendant gonk from.
Custom gonk can have up to 2 gadgets at once. Normally, you're restricted to 1. And heavy gonk deals more wobble damage when he bumps you. So the way it works is your gonk droids, there's 4 gates. They're really nice custom 3D printed gates where it said like gate 1, gate 2, gate 3, gate 4 in Arabesh over each one. Your goal is just to be the first gonk to pass through each gate. Bumping into the gate counts as passing through it. You have on your gonk card, there are 2 columns of squares labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 at the top, 1 at the bottom. You have 2 cubes that you put on there. This is your I think they're called actuators, your legs. These are your legs and the speed of each leg. So if you have each cube on a 1, your guy is going to go 1 straight because that's each leg is going 1 fast. Same with 2, 3, and 4. Use X-Wing maneuver templates. If your legs are offset, so if my left leg is going 2 and my right leg is going 1, I'm going to take a 1 bank to the right. If it's my left leg is going 3 and my right leg is going 1, I'm going to take a 2 turn to the right. Or a 2 turn. Basically, the way your legs are offset depends on how hard you're turning.
That's kind of cool.
Gonk droids are not built for fast acceleration and deceleration and all this stuff. So the whole crux of the experience is every turn you can adjust your legs. You can slide the cubes twice for free. Any sliding you do beyond that is going to incur a wobble token for each. So if you go from 1-1 to 4-4, you're going to get like 5 wobble tokens or whatever. In addition to 3 and 4 speed, just you're always going to get 1 for being at that high speed. Light gonks, if you're maxed out at 4-4, can go 5 straight rather than 4 straight. So after you go, you get these wobble tokens. If you bump any terrain, which is called a bonk, you do a gonk bonk, you get another wobble token. If you hit if you as you slide down your movement template, if you pass over any other droids, you bonk them and you transfer one of your wobbles to them, and then they get kind of barrel rolled perpendicular to your movement tool. So a lot of like, bumper cars going on. And then after you're done moving, you for every wobble token you have, you roll Shatterpoint attack dice. If you roll a crit, you've gone out of control. So for every crit you roll, so if I rolled 1 crit, I'm going out of control 1. If I rolled 3 crits, I'm going out of control at a speed of 3. You basically just flip this double-sided token that has an arrow on it. It lands, and it's going to be pointing in some direction on the board. You start facing that direction, and then you go that speed in that direction. Sometimes it's really helpful. There were people who went out of control at speed 3, and it sent them like the perfect way they wanted to go. Sometimes it sends you backwards, and then you hit the other guys. So it's the other thing is if you hit a terrain, you stop. If you start your turn touching a terrain, you can pass through it without consequence. That way,
that's nice.
You're not like there are still
Stuck
my
on
guy. My Gonk had some real good moves, and then some people bumped him, which sort of it almost reminds me of Colt Express or like X-Wing. If you could be moved before you reveal your dial, where like all of a sudden your plan is totally screwed up because you're not where you thought you were going to be, and it was very funny and silly and a lot of. If you ever roll 6 crits on your like wobble check, your droid explodes and you just die because gonks were not meant to go that fast. Yeah, it was really fun, and it was fun because it took so long to get from like each gate, and then you're like, I don't know, it was a lot of fun. There were gadgets you would pick up as you go through a gate, which different types of gonk got different types of gadgets, like laying down an oil slick or a way to like move your leg speed without penalty, things like that. Yeah, it was goofy. It was fun. Definitely not something that should be taken seriously because John got in a second match and he said it wasn't as fun because there was only like one other guy who were like really into it, and everyone else was like, "What is this?" Like it's gonk racing. Like we were playing it, it's just like a party game where every time somebody does something, everyone's like, "Whoa, oh," and doing the commentary like, "Oh, blue gonk is coming up. We got to stop him." It was a lot of fun. I really liked it.
It sounds neat. I like the idea of the wobble tokens and the gadgets and stuff.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I ended up getting screwed. The other thing is whoever's farthest behind gets to be first player each turn. And then at the end of each round, any player may claim that they are having a bad day. And if all the other players concur, then that person gets a free gadget and gets to go first. And I think if they do not vote that they agree with you, I think you just go out of control or something. But it's a pretty definitely would need some more rules refinement if it was ever going to like hit retail or something. But it was pretty fun.
I like that I use like components from multiple different games too. That's kind of neat.
I told them that I was like, hey, you make this retail, you sell it with fancy Shatterpoint dice. People buy it just for the dice, like they did with Outer Rim and X-Wing. They would need like notched bases. They should have had the gonk droids on notched bases, though that would have made it a lot easier. They're just on Shatterpoint bases, so you're like, well, let's just put the movement tool in front of the droid.
That's fun though. I hope they put the rules up online or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm skeptical because, like I said, they didn't even want you taking pictures because it's unlicensed. If
someone either probably either snuck pictures or just has like an eidetic memory and has put it up on Board Game Geek
John and I were like,
I bet.
Oh, we feel like spies in the 50s were like, we got to memorize these corporate blueprints. But I mean, I just explained all the rules. The only thing that I don't have in mind is the rules text for all of the gadgets. I think that was pretty much it. Yeah, my gonk got. I had like a great move, and then somebody bumped me, and I got turned a bit, and then I sort of ping-ponged back and forth between two pieces of terrain a lot, and I got dead last. I think John took second place because you play for top 3. I wish they would have had a little podium that they would put the droids on at the end. That was fun. I wouldn't be surprised if they have it there next year as well. Sort of a, just a Adepticon special experience, because it seemed like it was very popular and they sold out.
It would be fun to have like a custom gonk painted up and ready for next time.
A lot of people did bring some. If you look, Elle Firespray, she had a cool gonk that was like on like a koi pond or something.
Mm-hmm.
There were a number of cool custom gonks.
Did you get prize tickets even for just doing like the casual thing like that?
Yep.
Cool.
Nice. It was 5 tickets for gonk racing. And then fast forward again to trivia. After trivia, I spied none other than Mark, aka Sarastro, playing Unlimited with a friend. And so after we packed up for trivia, I'm like, well, we're gonna walk over there and say hi. And then I'm like, hey, it's me. And he's like, oh yeah, I know you guys. And like, just want to say hi. And then we ended up chatting for a long time, and he was just the most delightful person, as you might be able to imagine from how he comes across in his videos. And we chatted about painting, and I explained how he was responsible for teaching me how to paint, and he was very touched by that. And I couldn't help but show him my Shatterpoint Ewoks, which I had on hand, and he didn't hate them. he liked them.
Wow, I taught you how to do that. That's great.
Yeah, because Asmodee had basically hired him to run Shatterpoint painting classes.
Oh, nice.
So it seems like they, flew him out there, gave him a hotel room, and then he was teaching classes in person, which he said was, I guess he used to be like an elementary school teacher or something. So he was like trying to remember how to like talk to a group of people. But that was a lot of fun. It was really nice to meet him in person. And we talked about Unlimited, and his friend who was playing with, like, just bought into the game like that afternoon because they played some matches. Like, all right, well, time to go spend $200. Mm-hmm. That was Thursday. Friday was Legion Worlds, and I think I might try and put out a short video of sort of a tournament report, because I took some video and stuff. Not as fun as last year's Worlds. I can't remember if there were 4 rounds last year, but this year was 4 rounds because it was listed as 3 rounds in the event description, but then I think they had enough players that they had to bump it up to 4 rounds. And I think that was partially due to a number of players qualifying in the last chance qualifiers that got pulled in. I can't imagine playing in the last chance qualifier and then the next day playing that. But it was 4 rounds. I went 1-3. The one game I won was all right. My opponent had Lando, Cassian, and Boba Fett.
Interesting.
Yeah. He had 2 FD turrets, which helped because the terrain was not useful for that. I was playing Ahsoka, Sabine, generic Rebel officer, 2 veterans, 2 Marky Marks, and Rebel troopers. If you watch the tournament report video that I'll get around to making eventually, I'll have the full detailed list. But I won that one pretty easily, I would say. He made a few mistakes, and the terrain was on my side. There was a big like landing platform. So, and Clan Ren and Sabine were able to sit up there pretty safely and mess with people. And he overextended Boba Fett, and we chopped him up. Second match, I should say there were a lot of people who recognized the Jodo Cast, either from 2 Minute Unit or 2-minute unit was a big one. I heard a lot of people sing praise for.
Nice.
And a guy who said, well, I started watching with the Imperial Assault videos. That was like the other, it's like a 2-minute unit and Imperial Assault is apparently the reason people have engaged with our YouTube channel. And then there were people who, because my second round guy, he's like, oh yeah, I've been a while, but I listened to you guys. Do you still do the role playing game? I was like, no, but soon we will do it again. So I was like, wow, this guy's listening to this more obscure content. He was from Poland. He was very fun to play with. And I think there was like 12 people from Poland. But he was running Anakin Padme clone ball, which just not fun. Needs a nerf. That list, I don't like it. I don't blame anybody for bringing it to Worlds because it's very, very good and hard to beat. Like I said, my opponent was very nice and fun, so I actually did have fun playing that game, despite knowing from the start that I was completely outnumbered and out. Like, there's no way my Rebel list has a chance to beat something like this unless I do everything perfectly and maybe get a little lucky, which I thought I did all the right things, but the dice. So we did hostage exchange. Hostage exchange is good for me because I've got a Mark II turret which can move faster than most units because it has a big base and get the hostage away quick. It's also good for the clone ball because you just get the hostage inside your little mosh pit of clones and it's never going to die. So I said, well, I have to send Ahsoka after the clone. The Ark's holding the hostage, otherwise I lose if I don't kill it before it gets back to the little home base. And so I sent her out there with her 1-pip card, attacked them with 9 dice, and rolled 7 blanks on it.
Oh,
I was like,
ouch.
Well, that was my one shot to like maybe have a chance at this game. And then she had like 5 dodges, which I could have used to upgrade those blanks into hits. But I'm like, no, because I need those dodges because what's going to happen next, which is he disengaged, so his whole army could shoot at Ahsoka, which they did. And because I left her with those dodges, she lived with like 1 health. Then I used my Rebel troopers to heal her, and she ended up living until like round 5. But like, it was all like extra uphill after that. But it was actually an enjoyable game because I felt like, well, I tried and I actually maybe did the right things. The next match was against Padme and Yoda. Very similar, not fun at all. My opponent was nice, he was cool, but it was key positions. And so it's like either I go towards them and die, or I just sit here and wait because they're going to wait until like round 5 to start moving towards the middle position. And that's essentially what happened. His people just kind of sat in the back and we took pot shots at each other with our longer range guns. And like Ahsoka was just sitting there behind an objective until like turn 5, where she moved out. And I don't think I might have had a little bit of a chance, but then he shot at her and she just like rolled all blanks and died. I was like, I needed her to live for 1 turn because it was the teamwork turn with Sabine where they were about to give each other a million dodges. But then she just died on a bad roll. I was like, okay. And then my last match was against Krennic, Double Dark Troopers, and Seventh Sister. And we both were like, well, we're both, 1 and 2 or whatever. This isn't going, you can't progress to the next day. I think he wanted me to concede so he could get the guaranteed. You got 8 tickets for playing, and then 2 extra for winning. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna like drop out until he puts those tickets on the table. So I'm just gonna bum rush you. I actually killed a bunch of Dark Troopers, but it was hostage exchange again, and deploy the garrison with Krennic gives standbys to Dark Troopers, which can't be removed because they can't gain suppression. Then
Wow.
Seventh Sister can force push my hostage carrier, which triggers both standbys, so they just blow him up. And then I think Ahsoka, like, oh yeah, what I did that one game where I decided to keep all of her dodges because I didn't want to leave her in the open vulnerable. I just didn't do that this time, and I spent them all to kill a bunch of Dark Troopers, and then I was force pushed into the open where she was just gunned down. But it was a quick game. It was lame and not that interesting. I obviously wasn't playing that seriously anyways, but so like 2 games I thought were pretty enjoyable, even though one of those 2 games was against a list I think should be nerfed to hell. Um, so that was a long day because it was 4 hours. Started at like, we got there at like 7:30, and it wasn't over until maybe close to 9. Uh,
Wow.
It ended up being pretty miserable. I was like, I don't like that. So that was Friday.
Do you know what ended up winning Legion Worlds in the end?
I think it was a Black Sun Shadow Collective type list with
Okay.
2 speeder trucks. Because, much to my surprise, because I've been pretty out of tune with the meta, the Clone Ball, what beats that is experimental droids with a lot of like BX units, which I have never played against. And then apparently that Black Sun beats that. So it's cool that like of the 3 things I'm aware of that are like stupid good, the Clone Ball, experimental droids, and like double Dark Troopers, none of those things won. So it's as annoying as it is to play at a high level and play matches that aren't fun because the stuff that's the best is usually the stuff that's the least interesting. It's cool that the winner was playing something other than that. I don't know if it was Luke Cook again. Didn't he win like every Legion Worlds ever? I have to look. I was just so done with it at that point. I think I did end up playing another game of Shatterpoint against John later, but we called it because it was taking too long. No, that might have been on Saturday because Saturday was the Shatterpoint Premier Showdown Tournament. So I go from playing 4 games of Legion to playing 4 games of Shatterpoint, which was a little bit quicker, but not by much. I think we got done around 7, and we started around 8 again. And the Premier is you bring 4 squads, and by the end of the tournament, you need to have played each primary once. So you pick 2 squads at every start of every game. And I had Bane, Maul, Talzin, and Dooku. And the Bane Talzin squads is Talzin, Django, Night Sisters, and then Bane with the Bounty Hunters. I really like that one. It's a lot of fun. I think pairing it with Maul, Savage, and B2s is better, which was my other squad. But I only played that pairing once. I went 1 and 3.
What did you think of the forced like swapping?
It didn't seem that interesting to me. I made my 4 teams feel like they could be pretty interchangeable so that any 2 would work well together. I saw a number of other people's were basically here's 2 that go together and 2 that go together. I'm going to use like these 2 round 1 and then the other 2 for the rest of the tournament. I don't know if there's a better way to like enforce that you have to kind of go through each possible pairing of your stuff, but it didn't seem that interesting to me to have to bring 4 of them. Like, might have as well have just had 1 strike team.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, but it sounds like it doesn't work quite as well as like with Hearthstone. For like tournaments for that, players would bring like, I forget, what is it, 3 decks? It's been a long time since I've watched any pro Hearthstone stuff, but I think it was 3 decks, and then like each deck was a different hero, because you'd have a hero character sort of like you do in like Unlimited, but once your deck won in a matchup, it was like you play like they played like a best of 5 or something like that. I forget exactly what it was, but once that deck won, you had to switch off. If your deck lost, you could keep using that one. But
that seems a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
I like that idea. I don't know how you'd quite adopt it into Shatterpoint, but that sounds a lot more interesting. That okay, once you win, now you have to fall back to your other two or something, or
It's
maybe
kind of like
just
a
one of the two you picked has to
natural
be returned.
balancer. Like if you did that in Legion, for example, with the clone ball, it's like, well, if it's that good, you don't get to keep using it. So
Yeah, but in Legion, having to bring more than one army would be insane.
yeah.
With Shatterpoint, it's pretty easy. I fit 4 squads in my lunchbox with room to spare. My first match, I got my butt kicked, and it was against somebody. I guess shout out to Hello There Shatterpoint podcast. He was wearing one of their shirts. His name was Matthew. He was really good. Got my butt absolutely handed to me, but it wasn't like annoying. He was very nice and chill, and like was pointing out all of the triggers I was missing, or you know, he wasn't like telling me how to play, but he was making sure I didn't miss certain opportunities and things like that, which obviously he wasn't obligated to do at all. So that was really nice. My second game was pretty chill. It was against a guy who sort of knew how to play. And that was what we were both, John and I were curious about, is like, what's going to be the percentage of sweaty players to like people who are like, I picked this game up last week. And it seemed maybe like most of the players was just like, yeah, Shatterpoint, whatever. And then a handful of people who were like, I will be the best. Although in that game, I learned of people call him Obi-2, the Obi-Wan from the Duel set from the Kenobi show, not Clone Wars Kenobi. I think he's busted, or at the very least has an ability that's a huge negative play experience. And then I discovered you can pair that with the Magna Guards. Obi-Wan has an ability called Mind Trick, which is basically if you make an attack, declare an attack, he says, no, pick somebody else. That attack fails, pick somebody else, and now you have 2 less dice. The Magna Guards say if you're near a primary or secondary, you can't attack that primary or secondary, you have to attack the Magna Guards. So if you're in melee with a Magna Guard and Obi-Wan, if you try and you can attack Obi-Wan because of the Magna Guard, but if you try and attack the Magna Guard, Obi-Wan will say, no, that attack stops, attack someone else, and now there's no one else to attack.
Sounds
Which
sounds
is
fun.
pretty garbage.
Feels like it could use some type of errata or something, maybe. I don't know. Kind of weird.
I, despite having a much better understanding of the game than my opponent, I lost that one, which was fine because it was a fun game. My third game, similar. I was teaching my opponent a few rules that he was doing wrong. And we called the judge over to make sure, and yeah. But I lost that one as well, but that was still a fun game, and it was a chill.
You didn't
opponent.
You called the judge over. You didn't like throw in his face and be like, I wrote the Shatterpoint quick guide, buddy. I know.
There was an interesting in my second match. Basically, OB2 is immune to expose, and I learned that Cad Bane is just the worst guy to try and mess with that Obi-Wan because he has an ability called Step Aside, whereas if you don't step aside, you get an expose and a strain. But Obi-Wan says if you would get an exposed, you can just heal instead. So we had to look up this whole like order of operations of like, well, does him healing the Magna Guard like trigger the strain, and like what's the order of operations and all this? And it ended up like Cad Bane basically just gave Obi-Wan a free heal and nothing happened. I was like, oh, that's a bad idea. And then my last match, shout out to Joe. It was a battle of the Joes. We were both in the same boat, 0-3. Like, let's just play Shatterpoint. Like, this doesn't matter. Let's have fun. And it was very fun. And that game was the game that was the most Shatterpointy, where he had Ventress and Grievous. I had Maul and Talzin. And there was a point high up in the center of the map that every single primary character like fought and failed at that same spot. Grievous ran up there, and then like Mother Talzin like blasted him off of there, and then Maul went up there, and then Ventress went up there, and then there was this whole chain reaction of people wounding each other, and it was like the most like that's Shatterpoint where Ventress attacks Maul and wounds him, but then Maul has a reaction that says, "After you wound me, I get to hit you back," and he's rolling like 11 dice because of his thing. And then Mother Talzin says, "After you wound one of my babies, I get to do a thing." And so it was like all these primaries getting wounded. There was, I think, 11 wounds total that game, where most games might have like 4 wounds. It was a lot of fun, and I ended up winning that game. And Joe was fun. He might be suspicious of me though, because I had a bunch of Chopper pins on my lanyard, and he said, "Wow, you really like Chopper." And I said, "You have no idea." But apparently, the tone of voice I used, he was like, "What?" It's like, sounds like you got like some kind of Chopper like sex doll in your basement, man. I was like, "No." But that was a lot of fun, and
it's because you said it with like drool dripping down.
I was like, "You have no idea." I enjoyed that, and I have come to the conclusion, which was what I already suspected, that Shatterpoint is not a game that should be played in a high-level competitive environment, because it's full of randomness and chaos, and it's very imprecise, more so than Legion, and it's just like, and sometimes you might lose just because of the priority dice rolls or the way your deck is stacked, and I don't mind that. But in a tournament setting, if that's why you lose, that's gonna suck. And it's just, it doesn't feel like I don't fault the people who want to play it that way. But if you're taking, being really serious and trying to make the optimal moves, or not even the optimal moves, because that's what you're always trying to do. That's the puzzle of the game, is getting a mess and trying to find the best move for it. But just being ultra competitive with it just feels like antithetical to the vibe of the game to me. Mm-hmm. Like, John was playing a game, and he said, he was telling his opponent, like, if you have multiple choices, pick the cooler one. And he lost that game because his opponent took his advice and always picked like the cooler move, because it's such a cinematic game. Sometimes there's like the right move and the cool move, and I don't know, it just does not feel like a game that I'd ever want to care about, because it's also, I find it so fun. When you take it that seriously, some of the fun goes away, and now it's this sort of weird like chess puzzle that can just fail you without your own fault, because some of the games I had, the priority roll screwed me every single time, and that's just sometimes something you can't overcome, and just seems like that's not a feature of a game that should be played at a high, serious, competitive level. And so I will continue to do like tournaments and stuff, but not like super serious ones. I'd like tournaments as a means to get the community together and get people to play each other, not as a means to like try and express skill. So that's, I guess, my take is, I don't think the game is good for competition. There will certainly continue to be like serious competitors at Adepticon and so forth every year, and that's fine. And I'm kind of excited to see like how those end up shaking out. But I'm not interested in like doing those types of tournaments at Adepticon again. I'd rather do the side events. Like there was a doubles event that I missed out on because of Legion Worlds. That sounded like it would have been a lot of fun. So that was kind of my big takeaway, was like, well, this is going to be an experiment to see just how I feel this game holds up. And it's not because I lost 3 out of 4 games. It was just like, it
kind of
over serious.
Purposes.
Yeah, it makes the game more serious than I want it to be. And that's that's not how I want Shatterpoint to be, and I feel like it's not trying to be that. And so but the guy who beat me round 1, who, like I said, was like super perfect knowledge of the game, but also like a very nice guy and fun to play with, even though he kicked my butt. He ended up winning the tournament, I'm pretty sure.
Nice.
So I helped. Yeah, and then we played. John and I got in another game of Shatterpoint just on our own, another one with the Force game. And that's when Evan was doing his Sigmar tournament, which
do you know how that went like for him?
He went 1-3. So I went 1-3 at Legion, 1-3 at Shatterpoint. John went 1-3 at Shatterpoint. Evan went 1-3 at Sigmar. So 1-3 club. But it sounded like he had a lot of fun, except for the one opponent who was like super high the whole time.
Oh, okay.
And friend of the show, Christian, we did bump into a guy at trivia who we thought looked very, very similar to him. And then Evan ended up playing him and in the Sigmar tournament and spending, an hour or two or whatever playing against him. He also decided that not only did he look like Christian, but like he acted and behaved like Christian. Which was very funny. Yeah, and then on Sunday it was just doing a little bit more. I think we got in another game of Shatterpoint. Watching some of like the Final Legion games on the stream. Playing some Unlimited. And then the studio update from Atomic Mass Games. That was a big thing, which we are going to discuss and break down in a different episode coming up soon. Look at all the announcements and talk about what we think about them. By far, my number one favorite announcement was the Bounty Hunter pack for Shatterpoint.
Mm-hmm.
With Boba, Dengar, Bosk, and IG-88. Those all just looked so good. And getting to see the Chopper unit card.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I thought was interesting. So in the prize wall, the Shatterpoint bumper, the 4 Star Wars games had bumpers as prize options, which is like a 6-inch by 3-foot playmat intended for you to like put your unit cards on or whatever. I've seen people use those for Legion. I think the 5th Trooper did or does sell stuff like that. On the Shatterpoint one, there was artwork for an Ahsoka and a Vader that had been previously unseen. So it was very clearly a Vader with the Rebels art style and an Ahsoka in her Rebels era. And so we go, well, that's new. That seems to imply a Vader Ahsoka dual pack, much like the Vader Kenobi one. Obviously, it could be like a unit pack, but in any case, this art wouldn't exist if there isn't these units coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to Simone and Will, and I mentioned that, and they're like, "Oh, that's interesting." This was before the studio update, and and Will was like, "Oh, that must have just been somebody from marketing put those together. I haven't even seen that." And that wasn't announced at the studio update.
Yeah.
I was expecting that to be like, the mic drop at the end or whatever, like they had with the Thrawn tease last year.
Maybe it's gonna be like that. Wasn't there that one Imperial Assault playmat that had
with the Ewoks? Yep.
That had some artwork. Yeah, that never.
I forgot about that.
Yep. Yeah, Ewoks would have been an Imperial Assault given more time. I mean, their next mini extravaganza is in July, which is sooner than previously. Usually they're in September, I think, but
still kind of a ways
to
wait.
The Legion bumper featured the art of the Riot Troopers, the KX droids, which were announced. So like we're like, oh, okay, that's so the Legion promos like spoiled the thing early. Same with the participation prize at Worlds was the Bad Batch unit card, which was a fun way to get like a spoiler for that, was just to get the card. That was
Did
cool.
did they do better than the when they gave out the Han Solo cards at Gen Con before Han Solo was released for Legion?
Because that one
It,
had like errors, didn't it?
yeah, he had like the wrong defense die, and I think there was something else that was wrong on it also.
Hmm.
But
I don't know. I haven't studied like the official one.
I mean,
And also I don't
it's mostly on the upgrade cards for those guys, anyways. I feel
right,
like.
because it says equip Hunter, Echo, blah blah. Everybody's a mandatory upgrade, and then Omega is a counterpart, only usable in Rebels. And we've only seen the Republic card, which I don't play Republic, so I don't know what I'm going to do with my card. But interestingly, I wish the Republic version didn't have Echo as a mandatory option, because Bad Batch, you should be able to play it without Echo, especially if you're playing Republic. You know, you can pretend this was before Echo got involved. But
It could
then
be
maybe
like
they didn't
an
want to have
optional
a
open slot if you feel like it.
yeah, because maybe they didn't want you to be able to put something else in that heavy weapon slot. But most heavy weapons are restricted to the unit they belong in, I think. But whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
And it
they should be
is,
pretty cool.
as far as we know, it's the existing Echo upgrade, not a new one, right? Or is it a new one?
I think he has his own mini. I'd have to look at the minis they showed, but I'm pretty sure he's got a Bad Batch mini, because obviously
But I
Bad
wonder if
Batch Echo is very different.
yeah, but
card stats might be the exact same.
Oh, that could be.
I don't know. But yeah, you're right. There is a mini for him. So
that would be kind of cool if it is different, but you could put either one in there to customize the unit a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they play on Rebels, because it seems fun and original and fresh to have a unit that's like 6 minis or 5 minis or whatever, but they're all unique guys. But
Mm-hmm.
we can talk about that more when we cover the studio update in more detail. But yeah.
Then was there anything else you did on that last day after that?
Sat at the airport.
I was at the airport until like 10 p.m. Didn't get home until like 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. Evan and I played some more games of Unlimited, which were really fun. I played my Hera deck. Ezra was super clutch. Ezra kept revealing like choppers and Sabines, which I could afford to immediately play.
Nice.
And then Evan
That's the dream.
finally beat me, because I had like 3 souped up Spectre cards ready to destroy his base, and nothing he can do about it. But he attacked with Ezra, revealed an outmaneuver, played it, exhausted all my guys, and then his space unit finished my base and won him the game. And it was funny too, because he had just before that used Greedo, and Greedo's ability had burned a Han Solo off the top of his deck, which was like felt real bad. But then that Han had to die in order to reveal that outmaneuver, which won the game. I don't know. It was a pretty cool game. I did related. This is the only like thing I bought at the con, was the Lunar starter set, the 2-player starter box for Lunar by Blacksite Studios, which
You've
you
been
recall
thinking
from last
about
year's
for a while.
yeah, I was ogling that last year at Adepticon and didn't get it, and then this year there's like a second edition or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I'll get it now, and it might be in the box forever, but I'll try and get to it eventually, because it's astronauts and cosmonauts with guns. It's like an alt history Cold War thing.
Well, so kind of related to that, like other games, did you have much chance between all the Shatterpoint and everything to look much at the vendors and see if there were any just kind of neat games out there?
Everything looked almost the same as it did last year. I was again like eyeballing Arena Rex, because the art style and the minis are very cool. All this sort of like Greek, Roman, Viking, African fantasy myth type stuff in like a gladiator arena. But I didn't pick anything up from that. Other than that, I made like one lap through the vendors, and that was kind of about it. There was, we did see some guys playing a game I saw being demoed at a vendor that I didn't pay much mind to, but they were playing next to us while we were sitting there playing Unlimited on the last day. It was called Aerodrome or something. It's basically, they said it was created by someone who used to do X-Wing organized play, and it
So
seems
is
like
it
sort
like
of like
World War One planes or?
no, it looked like a sci-fi game. There's
Hmm.
no minis. It was just like, you know, cardboard tokens or whatever, but it had like X-Wing mechanics with like maneuver dials and the that sort of thing.
Hmm.
It looked like it had cool vibes. Can't speak for the gameplay, but obviously it probably shows a lot of DNA with X-Wing.
I wonder if anyone was demoing or showing off that new Star Trek game that's coming out. I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but that's what I'm looking forward to learning more about.
Oh, the one I would
Oh,
have.
the minis game. That's kind of more
Yeah,
like Armada ish. I guess. I don't think
yeah,
it plays like Armada, but I mean it's.
that kind of scale.
Mhm.
Yeah, more so than X-Wing.
A big one
It
was
actually might have just come out even. I forget, but yeah, go ahead.
the Halo miniatures game was being demoed there,
Oh,
which
sure.
if I had more time, I probably would have tried that out because it looked really cool. The minis looked great, and it was a small board, and it looked pretty neat. But I would have at least demoed it. I don't think I'll ever get it just because I have too
Be
many other things
fun
going on.
to like show up at a Legion game with a Scarab tank in place of your AAT.
Yeah, those ones look pretty cool. There's only one cowboy game there, and it was the same as last year, and it's one I find unappealing. It's sad, but also good because then I don't have to worry about spending money on it.
You just got to do your own Cowboy Minis game. If you could
I
combine that with your card game into
let me
one
tell you,
game.
I've got rule concepts for a Western minis game. Um, yeah, and then just seeing all of the in the obviously all the Legion tables are very cool, but some of the tables at like in the other games, like not as much in the Warhammer, but these just other games you've just never heard the names of, like Free Blades and uh I can't even tell you the names of them because I don't remember them and I didn't recognize them in the first place, but they had just such elaborate, like, medieval towns or like gladiator arenas or this huge like tower with all these like LED portals, or like, there was a whole dragon on a table that was probably like 4 feet long and like 2 feet high. Those,
Wow.
or just all these really amazing terrain setups that people were, playing on. I don't even know how you transport that stuff.
Probably in pieces.
But that was Adepticon. I think I regret not being able to make as much video content. There is still going to be stuff coming out. I've got a lot to work on still, regardless. I felt very burnt out and sort of yucky about not X-Wing, Legion Worlds. Just after playing that, it was so exhausting, and the last two games were just so not enjoyable. I was just like, ugh. And
I'm curious
yeah,
what did end up winning X-Wing though, and Armada. Just kind of out of curiosity, I super haven't kept up with those metas, but I wonder like what are considered the best ships these days. Might have to look it up sometime.
yeah. And I reconfirmed my existing bias that Shatterpoint not a competitive game that I want to play competitively. But
But you gave it
yeah,
a
it was a lot of
shot.
fun. It was
Yeah.
nice, obviously a lot of fun hanging out with John and Evan
Would you
and seeing all
say
the.
in total? It sounds like amount of time you probably did Shatterpoint the most, but in total matches played, did you maybe do more unlimited?
Oh, maybe. I mean, we did do a lot of unlimited. We brought our decks out. We saw a number of other. If you saw people playing a card game in their like free time in the hallway or whatever, it was either Magic or Unlimited. Definitely saw other people playing Unlimited, which is cool.
It would be really fun to be traveling with someone on like the same flights and be able to just like play Unlimited at the airport during layovers and stuff. That would make travel a lot more palatable.
Well, we should book some kind of trip around the world. The only intent is just to play Unlimited in airports.
Around the world in 80 Unlimited matches.
Yeah. We can. There's those websites that hook you up with like $50 airplane tickets because of like glitches in air ticketing systems. Just do that.
Easy.
Yep, and it was nice getting to talk to the AMG people again about various things, just kind of chit chatting.
Yeah, it's cool that they were there running some of the events and stuff.
Oh, and I will point out, they did hook me up with a number of extra goodies from the prize wall, which I will be giving away soon, as soon as I kind of sort them and decide how I want to do it. I'll be putting up a YouTube video to announce it most likely. So if you're listening, stay tuned for that because we're going to be doing some giveaways for should be some X-Wing, Armada, Legion, and Shatterpoint goodies, which includes dice, cards, lanyards, and maybe a bumper or two.
Wow. They just gave you stuff because the Jodo Cast is so cool?
I mean, that sounds like a weird way to put it, but yeah, that's basically it.
That's how they won their Game of the Year prize. They were bribing us with the.
Simone was like, "Oh, I'll just." She was like, "Do you do giveaways?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've done giveaways before." She's like, "Well, I can send you home with some extra stuff to do that." I'm like, "All right."
I'm not gonna say no.
Free goodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was exciting. So hopefully that goes well, and I do have quite a bit of X-Wing stuff to give away. So I think one of the prizes might be, grand prize feeling. I might have 2 X-Wing giveaways, like a little one and a big one.
Ooh,
I think the rest of the games might only have one thing, like one bundle. But stay tuned for that. If you were at Adepticon, let us know in the comments. If you're listening to audio, head over to the YouTube version of this to leave that comment, which is where I'm more likely to see it. Just big shout out to anybody I've met at Adepticon who like recognized me and or the Jodo Cast. That's always very exciting.
And if you want to join our Discord, you can get on and talk about Adepticon or any other games. You can tell us if you had a lot of fun playing against Padme and Anakin or whatever, those lists.
Man, I thought Padme and Anakin was rough until the next game when I played against Padme and Yoda. Because Padme has Exemplar, which lets units within range 2 of her spend her green tokens without any limits. Yoda has a card that dumps him with 2 aim, 2 dodge, 2 surge, and everybody within range 3 bubble can use that. So there's a turn where Padme's stacked because she has quick thinking, and Yoda has that card. And all of these clones who have reliable have all their surges. So they all just have this bottomless font of green tokens to pull from. So you're throwing dice, and they don't even have to care about making it to the like roll dice step, and then they're throwing dice with fire support, so they're rolling 15 dice and they've got like 10 aims to it. It's just pretty uncool.
And I thought it wasn't that long ago that everyone said clones are the worst and you shouldn't play them at all because they were so expensive or whatever. But I guess
that's the thing too, because nothing has changed with the clones since people were saying that. They haven't gotten any new units. Points haven't changed, which I think is fascinating.
Figured them out.
Yeah, I guess.
Interesting.
I'm excited to play some Legion with some, silly lists now that I gotta Maybe bust out the land speeder again. It's been a while since I put that on the table. Or play with IG-11. I don't think I've played with him yet. But, yep. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'm pleased to have met you at Adepticon, if I met you. If you were there and I didn't meet you, sorry I missed you. And, yeah, if you like this, if you're on our YouTube, be sure to give that the old subscribe, because that helps a lot. If you're listening to this on audio, just keep living your life the way it is. I don't need anything from you. You're solid.
But you still could go over to YouTube and subscribe if you wanted.
Tell a friend.
I mean, I was talking to somebody who is aware of basically just the podcast version and not the extra stuff that happens on YouTube, which is, if you're listening to this and you only listen to the podcast, there's a lot of other stuff on our YouTube. That's too much to mention, but probably something there for you.
Yeah.